in thinking!
I'm Sean Broderseth, and I've been thinking about the significant backlash at the moment against the super wealthy members of society around the world. I'm thinking of the Pandora Papers, which were released recently, which came to light, essentially a massive data dump of what the people at the top of the pile, the wealthiest of the wealthy, what they're doing with their money, how they're storing it offshore, how they're trying to finagle the system, they're trying to get around the different legal ramifications of having so much money, and people are furious with them. I'm thinking of the negative sentiment against people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, these people with ludicrous amounts of money, and how they are hated for that in a lot of ways. I'm thinking about the burst of enthusiasm again for communism, which is fascinating to watch, as if the 20th century hadn't happened, where nations are beginning to embrace this. I think of the Social Democrats winning power, winning the election in Germany, essentially just slow communism. And what that means, I'm reading through the Communist Manifesto at the moment, just a hugely humorous book, just so much fun to read. Not really, it's just a disaster because it goes against God's order. It goes against the way God has actually put things in place, which is for each person to work hard and reap the benefit of what they've worked for. Well, as we think about these things, and it's quite reasonable to look at the super wealthy, it's quite reasonable to look at the people at the top of the pile and think, well, should anyone have hundreds of billions of dollars? Should anybody have that? It doesn't seem good for anyone. We know it's probably not good for anyone to have that. It's quite reasonable to think that. But as we look at these things, I think what we should look for is the bigger picture of what it's doing potentially to us. We're so removed from that lifestyle and from anything in that. But what's busy going on? Well, I think that what the world is trying to do, essentially, and the media is trying to do, is bring everyone in on this approach towards that type of thing. And the approach is essentially to live with discontent and with coveting. The reason I say that is when you're concerned for the neglected members of society, you don't turn your rage against those who have much. You try and appeal to them and you try and get things in place to help the poor. What I see today is not a love for the poor, it's a hatred for the rich. And that is essentially coveting. When you hate those who have more than you, and you'll do anything to bring them down, it's often because you're discontent with your own life and you're coveting what they have. I think most people who are fierce critics of the super wealthy would gladly take the money that those people have. And so we must watch out for this. God did an interesting thing with regard to coveting when he put his 10 commandments in place. We know that the 10 commandments feature such commands as have no other gods before me, or honor your father and mother, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness. The 10th commandment, right at the end, God says, do not covet. Do not covet your neighbor's wife. Do not covet your neighbor's, I think it's oxen, or your neighbor's possessions. Do not covet anything that is not yours, that has not been given to you by God. You do not covet it because it's not yours to want. And it was the one thing Paul said he could not deal with, that command, because it hit at his heart. Paul writes to the Romans, and he's writing about the futility of trying to live according to the law without getting God's help through the righteousness of Jesus. He's writing about how it doesn't work. And he said, when the command came to not covet, every kind of covetous desire sprang up in me. And he realized he couldn't do it. And he just coveted everything. He wanted everything he shouldn't want. And that should show us how powerful coveting is. And how we might not look at people right at the top and think, I want billions of dollars. I don't think many of us think that at all. But we can be drawn into that trap of discontent. We can be drawn into a trap as we take in the media, as we watch what is being said to people and about people. We can be drawn into a trap of wanting things that are not ours and of hating people who have those things. Well, there is hope for us. That's the good news. Even Paul, who said, man, even as I was a younger man, I just coveted everything. I wanted everything. It wasn't mine to want. When he comes to the Philippians and he writes to them in Philippians chapter 4, he says, I've learned the secret of being content in all things. Whether I have lots or whether I have little, I'm content. He said, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. What a wonderful thing to know. That even as Paul described the raging desires that leapt out from within him, he got to a stage where he said, I've learned the secret. And I'm content. I can do all things through Christ Jesus who gives me strength. My encouragement to us as we see these things, and as they wash over us, the things in the media and the moaning and the complaining and the grumbling about these things. My advice is to leave it where it is. Pray that God would protect us. He would protect us from these things, that we'd live lives of contentment, that we wouldn't bathe ourselves in coveting and just drink it in, but that we would be grateful to God for everything He's given us and would seek ways to live for the benefit of others.
The end!